So many different times in my life, I've played with broken or hurt things, broken foot, broken leg, broken hand, broken arm, broken sternum, broken collarbone. I could keep going if I just thought more about bones. Why, man? Because I loved it. I loved playing the game. I was passionate about it. One of the reasons I even get encouraged at seeing all of you here. Do you know why I get encouraged by that? Is because you could be anywhere doing a lot of different things, but you chose to be here.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. In a world filled with endless opportunities, why would two men who have built 13 multi-million-dollar businesses altruistically invest 5 hours per day to teach you the best practice business systems and moves that you can use? Because they believe in you. And they have a lot of time on their hands. They started from the bottom, now they're here. It's the Thrivetime show starring the former U.S. Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year, Clay Clark, and the entrepreneur trapped inside an optometrist's body, Dr. Robert Zuttner. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
Mr. Clyde started from the bottom, and now we're at the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. Now we here.
Terry Powell, how are you, my friend?
Clay, great to be here. I'm doing great.
Hey, we're talking about Franchising 101, and who better to talk to about this than Terry Boom Boom Powell. He's never been called that until today.
That's it.
But now, in all seriousness, though, you are kind of like the godfather of franchising in a lot of work. People call you that, and I know you're sort of a big deal in the state of Connecticut. But people who might not know who you are, can you explain to people just briefly what your relationship has been with the world of franchising and how long you've been in this industry?
Yeah, I've been in the industry over 30 years, and primarily the fame, so to speak, and what I'm known for is a company called the Entrepreneur Source that was launched in 1984. That really revolutionized the way people discover franchise opportunities and how they use them to grow income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity.
Well, today we're going to be talking about Franchising 101, and specifically we're going to be talking about these 4 different areas, okay? 1, what is franchising? Mm-hmm. 2, what is the difference between a franchise and other types of self-employment?
Sure.
3, where did franchising actually come from? And 4, what do you actually buy when you buy a franchise system? So we're going to start off with what is franchising. Terry, the definition of franchising, according to our good friends at Investopedia.com, is it says a type of license that a party, franchisee, acquires to allow them to have access to a business's, in this case the franchisor, proprietary knowledge, the processes and trademarks in order to allow the party to sell a product or to provide a service under the business's name. In exchange for gaining the franchise, the franchisee usually pays the franchisor initial startup and annual licensing fees. Terry, from your perspective, if you had to explain what franchising was to a 3rd grader like me, an adult 3rd grader, what does that truly mean?
Well, the definition there is very accurate, but from a 3rd grader standpoint, it's important to talk about what it isn't. A lot of people talk about franchising as an industry, and it really isn't. Franchising is a methodology, a way of doing business. In fact, there's corporations, there's private entities, there's self-employment, there's entrepreneurship, but franchising is nothing more than a methodology for growing and expanding a business. Franchisors make the decision to franchise in order to bring in some of the entrepreneurial aspects of having individual franchisees bring their passion to apply to their business model.
So you're saying it's a business model, not an industry. And why
Franchising is not an industry.
why does that distinction matter?
Well, because franchising is not an industry, because inside of franchising there are 70 to 80 different industries that apply franchising as a business model to
Really?
grow. So they have a choice. They could either open company units, which many large corporations do, or they could take their model and grow it by franchising it.
So a lot of people, when they say franchising, or when you say the word franchising, they think immediately of the Golden Arches and McDonald's or restaurants of some kind. But you're saying, hey, restaurants are just one of those 70 industries or one of those 80 industries. There's a lot more to franchising than just restaurants.
Yeah. So it's the way the business decided to grow, and franchising is just one of many ways you can do that.
So what is the main difference, as I guess we talk about principle number 2, is the main difference between a franchise and other types of self-employment. Terry, in your mind, what is the main benefit and difference that separates owning a franchise system from owning other types of businesses?
Well, the biggest one comes to mind is the idea of being in business for yourself, but not by yourself, where you have a different type of relationship there, where there's an interdependent relationship between the franchisor who's licensing you their intellectual property and their systems and proprietary processes to use within guidelines for you to be able to use that model to grow your income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity. So it's an interdependent. They don't work for you, you don't work for them, but they form an interdependent win-win type of relationship.
So you're in business for yourself, not by yourself. I love that. I love that. So you have a support staff. And if people who are watching this don't know, when you buy a franchise, a lot of times you can pick up the phone and call corporate and they can help you with things. If you're having a struggle, they have training for you. They have materials, supportive documentation. It's really a neat relationship there. How much, though, do these proven systems really help the franchisees who buy them?
Well, it depends to the extent that they leverage them.
Okay.
And we know from experience that different types of franchise owners will use the franchise model in different ways. Those who get the highest return in the shortest period of time are those who leverage that model to the greatest extent, getting it to work for them. They're really using it as a leverage point and a synergy of creating multipliers that allows that business to be more successful. And then there's others that will work at the system, and they won't necessarily follow it exactly, but they'll use pieces of it. They'll treat it like a smorgasbord. They'll use pieces of it and let other pieces go on the other side.
How important is the ongoing expertise and support, the coaching that these franchisors, the people who started the franchise, how important is it that kind of training and support to the average business owner who buys one?
It's the difference between what the Small Business Administration says is about a 52% failure rate outside of businesses to a 5% turnover rate in franchise businesses.
Let me just make sure I'm hearing you right. If I start a business, and I'm very familiar with the Small Business Administration statistics, you're saying about half of the business owners are going to fail.
After 5 years.
After 5 years. Whereas in franchising, the people who buy a franchise, about 5% of them fail?
Well, the way they refer to it is there's an annualized turnover rate in the average franchise system of about 5%.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that the business failed. It means that that particular owner found that it wasn't the right vehicle for them and they sold it to someone else who will carry it on. So the failure rate's not really large in franchising as much as people realize that it's not the right vehicle and they move on to something else.
Now, I've heard this said over and over, that one of the big benefits of buying a franchise is that you have this massive purchasing power. You have the massive marketing power. Can you give me an example of how this massive purchasing power can actually help the average small business owner who decides to purchase a franchise?
Well, it's critical in businesses that really have lots of products that you need to purchase, or food elements and things that require massive investments to produce the end result, such as a restaurant, such as a bakery, those types of things. It's more important in those areas. But let's assume it's a brand new emerging franchise brand that they haven't built to the point where they have that buying power.
Yeah.
Even the fact that it doesn't exist, there are leveraging points that allow that model to make them more successful than they would if they didn't have that.
Let's say that I'm watching this and I'm maybe not quite getting this. I'm going to give you an example. You tell me if I'm wrong here. But if I owned one restaurant, I might only be able to get a certain price on my chicken because I'm only ordering enough to serve 200 customers a week. Whereas a big restaurant chain might be buying enough food to service thousands of people a day, and so they get a better deal. So it's the kind of the economies of scale. Is that what you're saying?
There's a lot of that takes place. And even in an emerging brand that might only have 10 units, the purveyor or the supplier is going to look at that and know that that's going to continue to grow.
Okay.
They look at an independent business in a restaurant. Some of those do multiply where they have multiple restaurants, but rarely is that the case.
I love it. Now, as far as the marketing power, you know, this combined marketing power, how does this, the marketing power, so to speak, how does that help the franchise owners who buy franchises, this marketing power?
It primarily works to the greatest extent when that brand is large enough where it's doing national or regional TV, radio, print advertising. But many franchise concepts don't do that. They actually focus their energies on marketing tools and resources and campaigns that are customized to the regionalized areas. So either way, you're going to have resources brought to the table that are going to be far greater than you would individually. But you also will invest a part of your revenues into those marketing tools. So it's just like any business is going to have advertising and marketing expense. You also have that in a franchise.
I think one thing that's awesome in franchising that's great is like there's some unbelievable commercials I've seen. Internet commercials, web commercials that franchises will run. And if you're a small business owner, I mean, if you're one sandwich shop and you went out and tried to make a commercial that looked like that, you're going to spend $50,000 or $100,000 real fast on making a commercial campaign. Oh, and that's not even buying airtime.
Yeah.
But when there's thousands of franchise owners and they're all paying a little bit into the whole, you can do some spectacular stuff. So I love that aspect of it. I love the whole idea you said is you're in business for yourself but not by yourself. I love how that works in marketing. That's exciting.
And the whole idea of franchising, the reason it's successful is because it's synergistic in nature. And those marketing opportunities and advancements that the franchisor receives creates a synergistic result for them that draws more business with less dollars.
Now, those are a lot of the great benefits of being a franchise as opposed to other types of self-employment. What are some areas where you see franchise owners and the franchisees that bought the franchises having the most conflict? Where do you see there being the most conflict when it doesn't work out? What are the areas where you see there being the most conflict?
Typically, depending on whether the first point of conflict comes determining whether they're actually following the system.
Oh.
I've coached a lot of franchise owners that would say that they're 100% following the business model until we do a real quick audit and ask some simple questions. And I can usually get to it in about 10 to 15 minutes just knowing that franchise model and find out that they're 10, 15, 20% off the system.
Okay.
In a franchise system, if you're applying 80% of it, you're not going to get 80% of the results. You're going to get 20% of the results. It's that 20% that you're not doing that really gets you into the areas that are holding you back, that when you focus on those, you'll get the 80% of the results. So franchisees spend their time in the 80% that they're comfortable with and avoid the 20% that they're not.
So I might want to ask myself, if I'm watching this, am I good at following systems?
That
And
would
if
be a
I'm
good
somebody
question.
who's averse, doesn't want to follow systems, franchising might not be the thing for me.
Yeah. If you're that entrepreneurial that you just like to learn by mistakes and you want to make your own rather than follow a proven trail. An example, if you come to my house and you have a great cake and I say to you, would you like the recipe? And we give you the recipe in excruciating detail and you want to replicate that. But when you go back to it, you start to change the recipe. You don't buy the ingredients at the right place. You don't buy the right quantity, the right quality. You put them together in the wrong order. Or as you're going through it, the flour's too messy, so you leave it out. The chocolate's better than the vanilla extract, so you add more chocolate and skip the vanilla extract. Would you expect the cake to turn out the same?
No.
That's pretty much the way it works in a franchise.
So you're saying in the world of I just want to make sure I'm getting this here, is that if I'm following 90% of the systems in the world of franchising and I don't do the final 10%, that could blow up the business. I mean, I might do all the marketing, but if I'm not answering the phone the right way or following the right conversion system, it might not work. So I mean, there's all that goes into it. I mean, I have to be very diligent about following systems.
Well, it is, and it's not as arduous as it seems to follow those systems. It's built into the model in a way that it tracks you to do those types of things for most people. It's those who get caught up on the things that they leave out, being the uncomfortable piece usually, like sometimes marketing or business development, or making sure that your team is got a right culture and everybody's applying the things that they can apply to the model for the client experience. Those little things can have a pretty large detriment to the results.
Now, as far as point number 3 here, where did franchising come from? Terry, many people get all historical. They kind of break it down. They're looking it up. They're trying to figure out where it came from. And there's some people who believe this goes back to medieval times, where you had the king and the queen, and you had and basically what they would do is they would actually grant somebody a franchise in order to do something like hunting or collecting taxes or do some type of activity within their kingdom. Mm-hmm. And basically, franchising just allowed people to have the right or the privilege to do some kind of activity.
Right.
Do you believe that that's the origin of franchising, or do you believe there's a different origin? Who invented franchising? Where did it come from in your mind? Do you know?
Most of the research leads to Singer sewing machines.
Really?
Yeah, as being the actual first business application of the franchise model in our economy.
Singer sewing machines.
Singer sewing machines, right.
Really?
That was some time ago. I don't recall the exact date. But there are lots of examples, going back to the examples you used, where they use something similar to a franchise model, but they weren't necessarily licensing them and creating the systems and processes and replication and duplication, such as tax collecting, for example.
Now, Terry, on this 4th principle, it says, what do you buy when you buy a franchise? What am I actually buying here? I think there's a lot of miscommunication here, a lot of misunderstanding of this here. Many people believe that when they buy a franchise, they're actually buying a big brand name. However, they're really just purchasing the right to use the system, right?
Correct.
What's the difference? What does that mean exactly?
Well, our mission is to have everyone realize that you don't want to buy a franchise. Okay. There's nothing there that you really want to necessarily buy. You want to own the results that'll come from it. So, looking at a business, you're investing in a franchise. The key elements of that investment are the franchise fee. That's a one-time only fee that it gives you the right to be part of that license system. It typically runs $25,000 to $50,000 one-time fee.
Okay.
But the cost it may take to open that business could be $300,000.
Oh, wow.
So it may have a $30,000 franchise fee, but there's going to be a $300,000 total investment you need to make. Now, you're not going to pay that to the franchisor. You're going to invest that in areas that they're going to manage for you, such as equipment, furniture and fixtures, inventory. That's going to be the amount of capital you'll need to have to get that business off the ground. So you're really investing in a franchise so that you can get the rights to use their proprietary licensing system. The track record, the paint-by-numbers approach that allows you to jumpstart your success and fast-track your growth.
So you're really buying the results is what you're trying to do. You're not so much owning anything tangible as much as you're buying the results?
Well, you have an asset. If you invest in a franchise and even the franchise fee is $35,000, that'll be an asset on your net worth.
Okay.
You'll move it from one area on your net worth statement, from your savings over to value of business owned. But then you're going to invest in this equipment and furniture and fixtures. That's going to be an asset on your net worth. You're going to reallocate some things, or you're going to borrow money to leverage that asset. So you're really investing in the tools and resources that you need to have a success track with that proven business model.
What are some of the tangible items that I'm actually purchasing when I buy a franchise? I'm getting tables and fixtures and logos, and I mean, what am I actually, for somebody who's watching this going, well, what am I getting? What is the thing they're actually getting there in terms of tangible stuff?
Well, most of the things we talked about will be very tangible.
Okay.
The larger asset investments, furniture, fixture, equipment, inventory, marketing packages, advertising, types of promotional items, you'll actually see what you're getting for that value. Where they have the difficulty is the smaller amount, the franchise fee.
Okay.
Lots of people take exception. Well, why do I need to pay the franchisor a fee to have the right to use that brand? And that's because the franchisor makes a considerable investment in meeting the requirements of the Federal Trade Commission to offer franchises. There's a lot of legal costs associated with that.
I don't think anybody realizes how much work, and we have some episodes where we've recorded about this, but I don't think people realize how much work goes into being able to franchise a business. It's not just like having a successful business and saying, well, I'm going to start selling these. I mean, there's a lot of regulation, and we have some great training for that. Terry, when you buy a franchise, you're going to pay lots of fees. And I know you've been in the industry for 30 years, over 30 years. Is it really worth it in your mind? I mean, despite all the fees, is it really worth it when you go out there and buy a franchise? In your mind, is it really a good investment?
In the majority of cases, it absolutely is. And you really just have to ask yourself, the way to measure that is to look at the results. Franchising is the most successful business investment model in our society. It actually is more successful than Securities and Exchange in the regulation of stocks and bonds from a standpoint of investment and return on those investments. The fees that you pay are really designed to allow you to be able to access the purchasing power, the intellectual property, the assets of the team the franchisor has to support you, will be what we call the performance enhancement pieces.
So from your experience, I mean, you do believe it's the safest kind of investment, investing in a franchise versus like stocks and bonds or anything else. It's the safest.
Especially today.
That's amazing. Now, Terry, in your mind, does buying a franchise guarantee you a smooth ride as a business owner? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so there's still some challenges?
Sure, absolutely. Most of those challenges come from the individuals that come in. Franchises are successful because franchisors totally simplify the business model. It's super simple. The challenge is we bring human beings in to operate those simplicity models. Human beings do not accept simple things easily.
Yeah.
And once it's very simple, they start to question and challenge it. It challenges them about applying it.
So if we could get some robots, that might be a good solution. Buy a franchise, get some robots, bam. Terry, I appreciate you being here and talking a lot about this subject because you know all this stuff. It's just off the top of your head. I mean, you've done this for so long. But at the same time, I think a lot of people who are looking at buying a franchise, these are new concepts to them.
Absolutely.
You have a website that it's the Entrepreneur Source. Can you direct us to the website there if we want to learn a little bit more about some of the details as it relates to franchising?
Yeah, the website entrepreneurssource.com.
Okay.
Entrepreneur with an S, entrepreneursource.com, will give you an element of a virtual coaching experience so you can really kind of get a sense of how we can help you discover in a safe space whether franchising is right for you. And if you want to jump right in to look at some things and picking some business models, you can do it virtually with our franchisematch.com website.
Awesome. Franchisematch.com is the second one there. Terry, I appreciate you being the godfather of franchising and really spending time with us here today. And I can't tell you how much you're helping and blessing people who've thought about buying a franchise and maybe are a little bit nervous to even look into it. So thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Clay.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
All right, we are joined here today with Terry Boom Powell. Boom. All right, now my friend, we are talking today about an exciting topic. And it's a topic that really does matter, though. It's called franchise disclosure receipts. Terry, a lot of times in business, we start to throw around jargon or various insider-only words, where it's like we say it so often, we just start to refer to things, and then people who don't know the industry can't really have any context or any grasp of what we're saying. And one of them that I hear a lot is this franchise disclosure receipt. Can you explain to me real quick the idea of why we need a franchise disclosure receipt? What's the point? Why do we need one?
Well, the document is really the FDD that every franchisor provides to a prospective franchisee prior to awarding them a license.
And so how does the receipt play into that franchise disclosure document?
Yeah, the receipt is something that's required that the recipient of the document sign and date. And there's no commitment from them on that part. It's just acknowledging that they received it because it's a requirement before they can be awarded a franchise, regardless of whether they ever decide to do that franchise. In order to get that franchise disclosure document, they have to acknowledge the receipt.
So just so that my third grade mind can fully grasp this, just kind of review. It's like a single page receipt where you have like the name and your date and your signature.
That's it.
And I can't due to federal regulations, the Federal Trade Commission, I am not allowed to buy a franchise until I've signed that 14 days prior to the day I want to buy it. Is that right?
But the most important part for everyone to understand is because you're signing that receipt doesn't indicate that you're going to invest in that franchise or ever own it. It just gives you the opportunity to have all the information to be able to determine that whether you ever invest in it or not. So the receipt is just acknowledging that we've provided that to you regardless of what the outcome is, whether you ever join the franchise.
On behalf of pig-headed entrepreneurs everywhere, I am probably the captain of this team, where sometimes we get stuck on an idea and we don't want to get off it. We're just hell-bent on it happening. If I'm saying I'm not going to sign anything, I will not sign anything until I know if I'm going to buy it or not. What would you say to that person?
I would say that's not an unusual reaction, and we hear that frequently, and understand what your concern is. Let's just kind of walk you through what the receipt is designed to do and how it's really in your benefit to be able to get a trove of information that's going to be valuable in getting to that point or not. And the receipt is just acknowledging that fact.
So for the franchisor's perspective, the franchisor, I have to get it to the franchisee, the prospective franchisee, and they have to have this document 14 days before they can buy a franchise. And from the franchisee perspective, I need to have this document. This should accompany receiving the franchising disclosure document, right? I need to receive this as part of that package?
Well, you need to receive that information because it's valuable, and the Federal Trade Commission put it together to benefit the prospective franchisee, not the franchisor.
Okay.
So it's valuable information that you're going to receive. It doesn't obligate you in any way, never determines whether you're going to invest in that franchise that's provided to you, but it's information that's available to you that you'd want to have.
So if I'm looking to buy a franchise, this is actually something that's designed to help me. This is like a consumer protection law sort of thing.
Exactly. All the FTC regulations relating to disclosure are really designed to benefit potential investors in franchising.
And for anybody watching this, if you're not familiar with the International Franchise
Association,
the International Franchise Association, it's an organization that helps provide a lot of statistics about buying a franchise and franchising and the prevalence of it in America and all over the world. And one thing you're going to find is that when you buy a franchise, you're so much more likely to succeed than if it's an independent business startup.
Absolutely.
The statistics are amazing, and it's because there's so much vetting and there's so much transparency that you have to have in this industry. Is that correct?
That's absolutely true. There's more regulations protecting an investor in a franchise than Securities and Exchange has for stocks and bonds.
And final question I have here for you, because I don't think people, if all they watch on Thrive is this particular episode, I don't think they get an idea for the level of passion that you have about the franchise business model overall. In your mind, why are you so passionate about the franchise business model?
Well, I actually started off with a passion about entrepreneurship and helping people discover entrepreneurship. And then I really became more knowledgeable about the franchise model as a vehicle to do that. And quickly, some 30 years ago, shifted into my passion into helping people determine whether the franchise model would be the best method to do that because of the regulations, the transparency, and of course the success track.
And how many franchisees have you worked with over the years?
We've been doing this 30 years. We have a group of 200 coaches throughout North America and in the tens of thousands of individuals that are achieving their dream as a result of a franchise business model.
I love it. You've worked with tens of thousands. You're bringing the clarity. You're bringing the knowledge. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm going to get one more boom from you.
Boom.
Boom. Terry Powell, how are you, my friend?
Clay, great to be here.
Hey,
great.
I am excited to talk to you about this topic. This is probably the one that I'm the most excited to ask you about because I hear people all the time. They have a business that's kind of moderately successful, or maybe it's very successful, and they say, well, I'm going to franchise it. And you see them starting to tell people, I'm going to sell a franchise in about a year. I'm going to sell a franchise in 6 months. In a year, I'm going to be having 400 franchises. And that might be a great statement, and maybe it needs to start with that kind of statement. But there's a lot more that gets into it. And so we're going to talk today specifically about the pros and cons of wanting to franchise a business.
Great.
And just so that people get a little idea about this, how many franchisees have you worked with throughout your 30-year career in franchising, my friend?
Wow. Well, we have a couple hundred coaches throughout North America, and we've helped tens of thousands become franchisees, but worked with literally hundreds of thousands of people who wanted to explore the opportunity of franchising.
I have kind of a rule that I go by. Anytime that I'm interviewing somebody who's done something tens of thousands of times, they have now become an expert. barely. So I'm going to listen to what you're saying here. So I'm going to get into it. So let's just say that let's assume for a minute that I have a existing business, and it is scalable. It is replicatable. It's now a model that I feel like I could open another one in another city and do it. Assuming that I have those things, which is it's hard to do, by the way, but assuming that I do have those components, how long is it going to take me to turn my business model into a franchise that I can sell, assuming that the business is profitable and scalable?
Well, time frame will depend on the industry and what you've actually put together as the model that you want to franchise.
Okay.
How well you've done at what we call franchisitizing and the non-franchise business, preparing it, franchisitizing. And it really depends on how well you've done that. In most cases, we find that people who have come to the point of looking to franchise their business haven't really done a good job of that. They're entrepreneurial mindset, they're entrepreneurs, and shifting to the franchise model is a whole different animal that they don't really understand. So it could take a year to a year and a half to actually do it well.
Just to franchisitize it?
Just getting to the point of having the ability to offer that franchise model. It would include the franchisitizing and all the things that happens after that.
And if somebody does want to franchise their business, are there people that do this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we have a division of our company that does, and there's many companies that provide services.
Just so that we get an idea, and I have a resource so it's not just a vague concept, what is the website, or what's a way they could, if they wanted to franchise and maybe look at your company as one option, what's a place they could go?
Well, there's two places. In order to first get your business ready to franchise, what we call franchisitizing it, you would go to Advicoach, ADVICOACH.com. And there are business coaches there that can actually formalize a franchisitized program for your business. And then once that was completed and you felt good about where you had the franchisitized model with your coach, you'd then go to expansionexperts.com.
Okay.
And that would be the ability to now take it to the level of formalizing that to meet the requirements of the Federal Trade Commission.
So if I'm a good soldier and I follow the rules, and I know that very few entrepreneurs always are,
Yes.
we usually follow 80%, 70%, maybe 10%. But assuming I am a good soldier, maybe a year to a year and a half, how much money does it cost, best case scenario, to franchise, to begin laying the groundwork to franchise?
Okay, great question. And that'll depend on some of the ways you approach it. It's going to be a significant investment, but you can reduce that by preparing in advance to franchisitize your business.
Okay.
It's less expensive to prepare it yourself with a coach and franchisitize it prior to going to someone that's going to need to do that for you.
Okay.
So if you're paying outside people to do it, it's going to be more. If you're working with a coach to do it internally with a program that is designed to franchisitize it, it's going to cost less. Let's assume you don't use that and you're just going to go out and franchise it. You're looking at somewhere in the area of as little as $100,000 and as much as $300,000 of investment just to get to the point where you now have the ability to legally talk to someone that you have a franchise to offer.
On behalf of any entrepreneurs watching this who might have just got nauseated hearing that total, you said $100,000 to $300,000 to franchise a business?
Right.
So just before we get into the pros and cons, when I'm spending $300,000 on getting my business ready to franchise, what kind of stuff am I spending money on?
Well, it'll vary depending on how well the business has been documented, but a lot of it will come from formalizing what the entrepreneur has done to succeed, translating that into something that's replicatable and duplicatable without an entrepreneur executing on it. That's a big shift, such as your entire education and training module for a new franchisee, and then the education for the employees of that franchise.
So let me give an example of what I believe to be a non-franchisable model. Maybe you can tell me why this wouldn't work, okay? I see a lot of business owners where they say, I'm going to franchise. And I say, well, why? They say, well, we're doing $3.5 million of sales. I said, well, great. I said, well, when the phone rings, what is the person supposed to say? And they say, well, she's been here 4 or 5 years, so she's got a pretty good feel of what to do. We focus on being very professional. Okay. So then we go into the next sales guy. Well, what does he do? Well, he's pretty professional. He's been here a long time. He's learned the ropes. And they have these kind of general statements. They're professional. They know the ropes. They're experienced. Why is that kind of thing not franchisable?
Well, first of all, you have to ask the question, what if that person has been here a while and is a professional and experienced at it and getting results, gets hit by a bus? what are you going to do to replace that? What's the mechanism to replicate and duplicate that experience? Usually in an entrepreneurial organization, slim to none. So it's not systematized, there's no processes, there's really no replicatable, duplicatable way to train a franchisee to make all those things happen to replicate that model.
Well, we're going to go through the 6 kind of nuggets of knowledge, the 3 pros and the 3 cons. And to keep it interesting, every time that we bring up one of these nuggets of knowledge, we're going to have some visual splendor that's going to show up on the screen here. So we're just going to stay emotionally prepared for this. So here we go. All right, so pro number 1, easier expansion capital. Terry, it's often said that franchising is really nice for the business owner because it's easier for them to expand without having to personally finance 400 locations. Is that
Absolutely.
true, or can you add some commentary to that?
Well, as we know, there's an entry-level investment you need to make, and that's still going to allow you to expand by bringing in an entrepreneurial mindset that you share in a interdependent relationship of win-win. So when you're willing to share the upside with franchisees, it also reduces the amount of capital that you need to put in to reach that expansion level.
It's almost like you have 300 or 400 partners, really.
Absolutely, it's a
symbiotic?
relationship that's needs to be looked at carefully.
Yeah, I love this. Now the pro number 2 is it's less growth risk, in theory.
Yes.
Now, Terry, many franchise owners believe strongly in franchising because it has given them the ability to expand throughout the country without taking on $1 billion. Example, I mean, if I opened up 1,000 restaurants that were $1 million each to open or $500,000 each to open, that could easily be a ridiculous sum of money to expand. So a lot of them kind of like that idea that it has less personal risk. How does franchising a business help to reduce the risks from your perspective for the founder as they seek to expand across the country?
Well, there's one sort of danger we need to address first, and that is that most people that go to franchise a concept believe it's going to grow very rapidly, and prospective franchisees are just going to accept it. All franchisors start off as an emerging brand.
Okay.
And when candidates are looking, they frequently are concerned about emerging brands because there's not a track record.
Okay.
But there's a certain category of candidates that are well suited for those emerging brands, so you have to understand that. Use Subway as an example. Subway has thousands and thousands of franchises today. But what most people don't realize, their first 7 years they franchised, at the end of the 7th year, they had 47 franchisees.
Wait a minute.
And they had already had 10 failures.
So you mean after 7 years, Subway had less than 50?
Yes.
And just so anybody watching this has a little historical context, it took Disney years and years and years before Disney World or Disney,
Exactly.
Walt Disney was profitable. Henry Ford lost it all 5. Disney lost it twice. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company he started. So it doesn't mean that Subway is weird. This is just an
Not at
example.
all.
I mean, this is sort of to be expected. So 7 years, they were selling like 7 a year roughly then.
Yeah. And that's some time ago.
Yeah.
That's changed a lot today just because of the demand for those types of things. And the fact that there are more types of individuals who will look towards emerging brands. They want to be part of something and grow it from the ground and be part of what we would call similar to a penny stock offering compared to somebody that's just looking for a blue stock or a cream of the crop type of thing, like an IBM type of stock.
Now, pro number 3 is, in theory, I can attract better team members. All small businesses, know it's kind of hard to find top talent sometimes. Yeah. And I have found specifically as a consultant, I was Small Business Administration Entrepreneur of the Year for Oklahoma. And so I worked with a lot of small business owners as a consultant. And the one thing I found is sometimes the small business owners will wear that as a badge of honor. I'm a small business owner. But very few employees want to stay in a small business. It can actually get depressing if you're working for a company that you know is never going to grow, and you're kind of a cog in that wheel. And so I have found that a lot of franchisors have told me, since we decided to do a national expansion plan, it's helped us attract better people.
Absolutely.
I think it goes back to that biblical principle that where there's no vision, the people perish. Have you seen this to be the case? You can attract better people when people know you have a big vision?
Yeah, the vision is really important, and the passion towards that vision is really what's going to attract the types of individuals that you're going to want to employ to be part of sharing in that growth and that success.
Now, the con here, as we get into the cons, con number one is there's less control.
Yeah.
So as somebody franchises their business model, eventually somebody other than the founder has to open the location, has to train employees, and they might have their own nuance for doing things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know as a guy who once freaked out at my entire staff because someone moved my scissors, it was kind of that breaking point. You know, like a lot of things were going on, and I was like, who took my scissors? Why would you take my scissors? You know my scissors go there. You know, I think a lot of business owners, we are notorious for don't touch my stuff. So talk to me about how this can be a con or a very hard thing for the person who's franchising their business to lose a little bit of control there.
It's a major thing for someone who's going to franchise. There's a one mistake that pretty much every franchisor makes, and that's the type of franchisee they go out to look for. Now, all of us entrepreneurs who franchise our concept have to also understand that we're no longer going to be doing what we've been doing and achieving operating that business. We've now left that, and now we're going into becoming a franchisor. Everything changes, our focus changes, what we do every day changes. You need to be prepared for that. But the biggest mistake they make, I did the same thing, is that I believe that find the best franchisees is to find people like myself.
Okay.
That's absolutely the opposite.
So a bunch of alphas that don't want to follow systems and are very creative and big visions and, okay.
Hence, that's why you lose control, because you think you had it in the first place.
I want to just, if you're watching this and you're having a hard time maybe grasping what Terry's talking about or what I'm talking about, I'll give you another example. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be a little crazy. I mean, you have to sort of be a crazy person who believes you can change the world, or that you can start with a very minimal advertising budget and be successful. But when you're trying to attract people to buy your franchise, if you have 300 people that are all crazy people who would rather ask for forgiveness than permission, you're going to have some issues. So it's just you're not necessarily looking for the same personality type.
Not at all.
That you have.
Absolutely.
As you grow. So that's a big aha.
Big shift.
Now, con number two is the capital-intensive franchising process. I know I was blown away when I discovered that you could and you don't even have to be a big spender to blow but to invest $300,000 in franchising your business. That can happen very normally.
And then once you're franchised, you're going to need to renew a lot of that commitment on an annual basis with audits of your financial statements and updating of your disclosure documents.
So if I'm watching this, and let's say I have a local business that's doing great. Let's say I have a local basketball coaching facility. I'm known throughout Texas. People know me. You know, I am on fire. People travel from other states to come to my place, and I want to franchise this. I'm gonna do it. How much money should I mentally plan on spending over the next 2 or 3 years to get this thing going?
Again, it'll depend on the concept and how well you're prepared prior to starting to spend the money.
Yeah.
But in average terms, over the next 2 to 3 years, a minimum is going to be the $100,000 to get it to franchising it, and then the following 2 years, you're going to invest likely $75,000 to another $100,000 to keep up your audits and your FDD and hire some things and invest some things you're not ready for yet, but you have to have in order to franchise.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be unusual to do $200,000 to $300,000 minimum.
So if you're watching this is not supposed to be demotivational speaking with Terry Powell. This is just real talk. This is the real stuff you need to know if you're going to grow or start a franchise here.
Yeah.
Now, con number 3, and this is one of my favorite ones. I know this will be your favorite one. Throughout my years of being a business owner, I have become just fond of any type of government compliance.
Yeah, we all.
I love the letters. I love the fines, the fees. I love the big documents that are written by people who might or might not have unique ways of expressing their personality or lack thereof. And when you buy a franchise, you're going to have a ton of compliance. Am I right?
Well, the individual who's investing is not going to have that. But when you shift your business model to become a franchisor, you now fall into the realm of being part of the FTC or Federal Trade Commission requirements for franchising, which are the most extensive requirements, even beyond Securities and Exchange for stocks and bonds.
And over the years, government has begun to regulate franchising more as part of the consumer protection laws to make sure people aren't out there selling snake oil, BS, or false things. So it's great as a potential franchise potential franchise buyer. You're pretty safe when you read those franchise and disclosure documents. That's accurate stuff.
Absolutely.
But as a franchisor, the person looking to sell these franchises, there's a lot of burden on you to be accurate, have a lot of information. Talk to me about, even just at the most simple terms, if I called you and said, Terry Powell, I would like to buy a franchise. Talk to me about how government compliance even affects that conversation.
Well, you have to be very careful about the types of things that you'll have as part of a conversation with an individual. You're not able to discuss details around income potential other than things that would be part of your franchise disclosure document. So there's a whole compliance issue that we need to train individuals that are answering the phone, engaging with potential franchisees, because you can actually get into trouble before they even become a franchisee because of the regulations. The good news is that's all designed to protect the potential franchise investor. So it's there to help them be able to get the right information and not have somebody out there selling them on, smoke and mirrors.
What if I have a snow cone stand? Going back to the snow cone stand, and I am just selling some snow cones. People love it. People like me. I'm making a good profit. And I only decide to sell franchises in one state. One state.
Yeah.
How often do I get to interact with the fabulous government officials on an annual basis?
Well, regardless of how much you're going to expand your franchise, you have to meet all the requirements of the Federal Trade Commission to offer it anywhere. And if the state that you're going to expand it in or that you're located in happens to be a registration state, you're also going to need to meet those requirements, which will mean additional investments.
States like California.
States like California, New York, Virginia, Maryland, so forth and so on.
So just to be clear, there is a lot of interaction with the government I get to have. And if I like interacting with the government, this is exciting.
Well, the good news is you don't get to interact. You don't have to interact with the government.
Oh.
They actually set the criteria, and your attorney gets to meet those requirements. And then we hear from the government when we don't meet them.
See, I was hoping, to me, this is a great way to meet your local attorney general.
Yeah.
What you do is you build a franchise and you just don't comply. And then you'll probably get to meet him. He might come to your office.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to go visit even federal prisons if you are false about how you do things, right? You can go to federal prison, right, if you don't follow this?
Yep, it's happened.
So if you want to do an interactive tour of a federal prison or meet the local attorney general, there's all sorts of ways to meet people in charge.
And you can invest $300,000 or $100,000 to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's like a vacation. Why go to Europe when you can go to a federal prison or interact with the attorney general? Okay, so moving on here. Terry, the final thing I want to ask you about this is there's obviously challenges to franchising, but it's not impossible. And so if I have a successful business and I have a very profitable business, let's say I operate at a 30% profit margin, and I'm doing well, step one that you would recommend, your recommendation, unbiased, what's step one that I should take if I say I want to franchise? I'm motivated. I know about all the pros and cons, but I want to do it. What's step one that you recommend that I should take?
Well, step one that we typically hear is they come to us and say they're going to do this. How much is it going to cost me? That's not typically the first thing you want to be looking at, is what's it going to cost you, because it doesn't cost you anything. You're either going to invest in it or you're not. So the first thing I would recommend is you hire a coach that can help you franchise-atize that business, meaning prepare it to be franchised. Because the more you learn about what's the difference between your model now and what you need to do to have it franchise-atized will help in a lot.
Ballpark, what does it cost to hire a coach to franchise-atize a business?
Let's assume you devoted a year to getting your business ready to do it right, franchise-atized, and you hired a coach. You're looking at a maximum of about $22,000 to $25,000 investment over that year to prepare you. And it also will give you an opportunity to determine whether you really want to invest the other $300,000 to go to that step.
I love this word, franchise-atized. It's kind of fun to say, but I also like the idea that you could hire somebody who can even offer you guardrails as you're going through the process of becoming a business that could franchise.
Exactly.
Terry, I appreciate you're like a wealth of knowledge. It's almost overwhelming. I almost feel like I need to duct tape my head to make sure that my brain doesn't explode with all this new knowledge that I'm taking in here. But the great thing about Thrive is you can pause it, watch it again, take notes. But again, I appreciate you being here, the living legend himself, the godfather of franchising. Terry, boom, boom, pal, can I get a boom?
You can, boom.
Boom.
JT, do you know what time it is?
410.
It's Tebow time in Tulsa, Jerusalem, baby. Tim Tebow is coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma. During the month of Christmas, December 5th and 6th, 2024, Tim Tebow is coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 2-day interactive Thrivetime Show Business Growth Workshop. Yes, folks, put it in your calendar. This December, the month of Christmas, December 5th and 6th, Tim Tebow is coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma in the Thrivetime Show 2-day interactive business growth workshop. We've been doing business conferences here since 2005. I've been hosting business conferences since 2005. What year were you born?
1995.
Dude, I've been hosting business conferences since you were 10 years old. And a lot of people, have followed Tim Tebow's football career on the field and off the field. And off the field, the guy's been just as successful as he has been on the field. Now, the big question is, JT, how does he do it?
Well, they're going to have to come and find out because I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, Tim Tebow's going to teach us how he organizes his day, how he organizes his life, how he's proactive with his faith, his family, his finances. He's going to walk us through his mindset that he brings into the gym, into business. It is going to be a blasty blast in Tulsa, Jerusalem. Folks, I'm telling you, if you want to learn branding, you want to learn marketing, you want to learn search engine optimization, you want to learn social media marketing, that's what we teach at the Thrivetime Show 2-day interactive workshop. If you want to learn accounting, you want to learn sales systems, you want to learn how to build a linear workflow, you want to learn how to franchise your business, that is what we teach at the 2-day interactive Thrivetime Show business workshop. Over the years, we've had the opportunity to feature Michael Levine, the PR consultant of choice for Nike, for Prince, for Michael Jackson. We've had the top PR consultant in the history of the planet has spoken at the Thrivetime Show workshops. We've had Jill Donovan, the founder of RusticCuff.com, a company that creates apparel worn by celebrities all throughout the world. Jill Donovan, the founder of RusticCuff.com, has spoken at the 2-day interactive Thrivetime Show business workshops. We have had the man who's responsible for turning around Harley Davidson, a man by the name of Ken Schmidt. He has spoken at the Thrivetime Show 2-day interactive business workshops. Folks, I'm telling you, these events are going to teach you what you need to know to start and grow a successful business. And the way we price the events, the way we do these events, is you can pay $250 for a ticket or whatever price that you can afford. What? Yes! We've designed these events to be affordable for you, and we want to see you live and in person at the 2-day interactive December 5th and 6th Thrivetime Show Business Workshop. Everything that you need to succeed will be taught at the 2-day interactive Thrivetime Show Business Workshop, December 5th and 6th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the way we do these events is we teach for 30 minutes, and then we open it up for a question and answer session so that wonderful people like you can have your questions answered. Yes, we teach for 30 minutes, and then we open it up for a 15-minute question and answer session. It's interactive. It's 2 days. It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've been doing these events since 2005, and I'm telling you, folks, it's going to blow your mind. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Thrivetime Show 2-day interactive business workshop is America's highest rated and most reviewed business workshop. See the thousands of video testimonials from real people just like you who've been able to build multi-million-dollar companies. Watch those testimonials today at thrivetimeshow.com. Simply by clicking on the testimonials button right there at thrivetimeshow.com, you're going to see thousands of people just like you who've been able to go from just surviving to thriving. Whoa. Each and every day, we're going to add more and more speakers to this all-star lineup, but I encourage everybody out there today, get those tickets today. Go to thrivetimeshow.com. Again, that's thrivetimeshow.com. And some people might be saying, well, how do I do it? What do I do? How does it work? You just go to thrivetimeshow.com. Let's go there now. We're feeling the flow. We're going to thrivetimeshow.com. Again, you just go to thrivetimeshow.com. You click on the business conferences button, and you click on the request tickets button right there. The way I do our conferences is we tell people it's $250 to get a ticket.
Yep.
Or whatever price that you can afford. And the reason why I do that is I grew up without money. JT, you're in the process of building a super successful company. Did you start out with $1 million in the bank account?
No, I did not. Nope, did not get any loans, nothing like that. Did not get an inheritance from parents or anything like that. I had to work for it, and I'm super grateful. I came to a business conference. That's actually how I met you, met Peter Taunton. I met all these people.
So if you're out there today and you want to come to our workshop, again, you just got to go to thrivetimeshow.com. You might say, well, who's speaking? We already covered that. You might say, where's it going to be? It's going to be in Tulsa, Jerusalem, Oklahoma. And so it says Tulsa, Jerusalem. It's I'm really trying to rebrand Tulsa as Tulsa Jerusalem, sort of like the Jerusalem of America. But if you type in Thrivetime Show and Jinx, you can get a sneak peek or a look at our office facility. This is what it looks like. This is where you're headed. It's going to be a blasty blast. You can look inside, see the facility. We're going to have hundreds of entrepreneurs here. It is going to be packed. Now, for this particular event, folks, the seating is always limited because my facility isn't a limitless convention center. You're coming to my actual home office, and so it's going to be packed. Who? You're going to come. Who? You? I'm talking to you. You can just get your tickets right now at thrivetimeshow.com. And again, you can name your price. We tell people it's $250 or whatever price you can afford. And we do have some select VIP tickets, which gives you an access to meet some of the speakers and those sorts of things. And those tickets are $500. It's a 2-day interactive business workshop, over 20 hours of business training. We're going to give you a copy of my newest book, The Millionaire's Guide to Becoming Sustainably Rich. You're going to leave with a workbook. You're going to leave with everything you need to know to start and grow a super successful company. It's practical, it's actionable, and it's Tebow time right here in Tulsa, Jerusalem. Get those tickets today at thrivetimeshow.com. Again, that's thrivetimeshow.com.
Hello, I'm Michael Levine, and I'm talking to you right now from the center of Hollywood, California, where I have represented over the last 35 years 58 Academy Award winners, 34 Grammy Award winners, 43 New York Times bestsellers. I've represented a lot of major stars, and I've worked with a lot of major companies. And I think I've learned a few things about what makes them work and what makes them not work. Now, why would a man living in Hollywood, California, in the beautiful sunny weather of LA, come to Tulsa? Because last year I did it, and it was damn exciting. Clay Clark has put together an exceptional presentation, really life-changing, and I'm looking forward to seeing you then. I'm Michael Levine. I'll see you in Tulsa.
Thrivetime Show 2-day interactive business workshops are the world's highest rated and most reviewed business workshops because we teach you what you need to know to grow.
You can learn the proven 13-point business systems that Dr. Zellner and I have used over and over to start and grow successful companies. I mean, we get into the specific steps on what you need to do to optimize your website. We're going to teach you how to fix your conversion rate. We're going to teach you how to do a social media marketing campaign that works. How do you raise capital? How do you get a small business loan? We teach you everything you need to know here during a 2-day, 15-hour workshop. It's all here for you. You work every day in your business, but for 2 days you can escape and work on your business and build these proven systems so now you can have a successful company that will produce both the time freedom and the financial freedom that you deserve. You're going to leave energized, motivated, but you're also going to leave empowered. The reason why I've built these workshops is because as an entrepreneur, I always wish that I had this. And because there wasn't anything like this, I would go to these motivational seminars, no money down, real estate, Ponzi scheme, get motivated seminars, and they would never teach me anything. It was like you went there and you paid for the big chocolate Easter bunny, but inside of it, it was a hollow nothingness. And I wanted the knowledge, and they're like, oh, but we'll teach you the knowledge after our next workshop. And the great thing is we have nothing to upsell. At every workshop, we teach you what you need to know. There's no one in the back of the room trying to sell you some next big get-rich-quick, walk-on-hot coals product. It's literally, we teach you the brass tacks, the specific stuff that you need to know to learn how to start and grow a business. And I encourage you to not believe what I'm saying, and I want you to Google the Z66 auto auction. I want you to Google elephant in the room. Look at Robert Zellner and Associates. Look them up and say, are they successful because they're geniuses, or are they successful because they have a proven system? When you do that research, you will discover that the same systems that we use in our own business can be used in your business. Come to Tulsa, book a ticket, and I guarantee you it's going to be the best business workshop ever, and we'll even give you your money back if you don't love it. We've built this facility for you, and we're excited to see you.
And now you may be thinking, what does it actually cost to attend an in-person 2-day interactive Thrivetime Show business workshop? Well, good news. The tickets are $250 or whatever price that you can afford. What? Yes, they're $250 or whatever price you can afford. I grew up without money, and I know what it's like to live without money. So if you're out there today and you want to attend our in-person 2-day interactive business workshop, all you got to do is go to thrivetimeshow.com to request those tickets. And if you can't afford $250, we have scholarship pricing available to make it affordable for you.
I learned at the Academy, Kings Point in New York. Acta non verba. Watch what a person does, not what they say.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Today I'm broadcasting from Phoenix, Arizona, not Scottsdale, Arizona. They're close, but they're completely different worlds. And we have a special guest today. Definition of intelligence is if you agree with me, you're intelligent. And so this gentleman is very intelligent. I've done this show before also, but very seldom do you find somebody who lines up on all counts. And it's a Mr. Clay Clark. He's a friend of a good friend, Eric Trump. But we're also talking about money, bricks, and how screwed up the world can get in a few and a half hour. So Clay Clark is a very intelligent man, and there's so many ways we could take this thing. But I thought, since you and Eric are close, Trump, what were you saying about what Trump can't, what Donald, who's my age, and I can say or cannot say?
Well, first of all, I have to honor you, sir. I want to show you what I did to one of your books here. There's a guy by the name of Jeremy Thorne, who was my boss at the time. I was 19 years old, working at Faith Highway. I had a job at Applebee's, Target, and DirecTV. And he said, "Have you read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?" And I said, "No." And my father, may he rest in peace, he didn't know these financial principles. So I started reading all of your books and really devouring your books. And I went from being an employee to self-employed, to the business owner, to the investor. And I owe a lot of that to you. And I just wanted to take a moment to tell you, thank you so much for allowing me to achieve success. And then I'll tell you all about Eric Trump. But I just want to tell you, thank you, sir, for changing my life.
But not only that, Clay, thank you, but you become an influencer. More than anything else, you've evolved into an influencer where your word has more and more power. So that's why I congratulate you on becoming. Because as you know, there's a lot of fake influencers out there too, or bad influencers.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad you and I agree so much, and thanks for reading my books.
Yeah.
That's the greatest thrill for me today. Not a thrill, but recognition is when people, young men especially, come up and say, "I read your book, changed my life. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this."
I learned at the Academy, Kings Point in New York. Acta non verba. Watch what a person does, not what they say. Whoa.